Hey, Dr. John Finn here. Welcome to the Habit Mechanic podcast. Right now, you can get my new best-selling book, Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, at tougherminds.co.uk. The digital book, audiobook, and physical book are all available at a special price that you won't find anywhere else.
Hello, and welcome to the first in a new series of regular Tougher Minds podcasts. We're going to be looking at all aspects of the consultancy's work in education and business and life in general, and talking about some of the issues that we see and some of the problems that Tougher Minds programs help to tackle. In this first podcast, we're talking to Tougher Minds founder and managing director, Dr. John Finn, about an aspect of education. And we're basing our discussion on an article that recently appeared on the BBC website. The piece talked about stress in schools and specifically how exams and tests were becoming very problematic for young people. And the article also stated rather alarmingly that these tests and the stress caused by them were leading some children to self-harm. So we spoke to John Finn and asked him what can be done and what approaches can we take to tackle this problem. The article we're talking about on this podcast, John, was published on the BBC website on the 4th of April, and it followed the release of a survey by the Association of Teachers and Lecturers. They polled a number of their members who'd reported a pretty bleak picture in the schools they worked in, and they talked about a fairly acute picture of stress being suffered by pupils, so much so that some of these pupils, they said, were on the verge of serious self-harm, and their mental state was far from good. The article quotes teaching staff saying that the pressure placed on children of 10 and 11 was excessive. Another respondent to the survey said that mental health issues are probably our biggest barrier to academic progress. Another one said, as a head of school, I'm spending more and more of my time supporting children with mental health issues. And another member of staff was quoted as saying that at their secondary academy in London, there was a huge increase in physical symptoms of stress and incidents of self-harm. Now, the survey itself and the leader of the Association of Teachers and Lecturers Union went on to make some comments about the way the curriculum was structured and specifically made some critical comments about testing. That's not what we're talking about here. Of course, that's a different debate. But nevertheless, the survey did identify this very clear picture that young people were suffering from this stress, and tests were certainly very clearly identified as being a causal factor. And again, leaving aside questions about how curriculum should be structured in terms of that sort of thing. But John, first of all, from your point of view, why is it that the testing process could be problematic for young people?
Well, I think tests are stressful because they're threatening. They are a way of judging someone ultimately, and when the outcome of the judgment is meaningful, like for your entrance exams or 11+ exams, or for GCSEs and A levels, the brain's wired to pay attention to that. So it's a threat response. I guess the problem is that because we are so wired to procrastinate, we're so wired to to put off sort of long-term goals, that we put off dealing with the stress, if you like, and the closer it gets, then the more daunting it becomes. So to give you an example, GCSE exams aren't as stressful generally for year 11 pupils in September as they are, in May, because their exams are much further away. But from a basic neurobiological perspective, the tests they're threatening, and the more meaningful they are, the more threatening they are.
Yeah, and you can imagine, I suppose, add into that picture. There's an element you spoke about, the threat they provide. One would imagine that the peer group as well can only amplify that situation. Is that fair to say?
I think that the peer group will certainly impact on the situation, but that could be in a positive or a negative way. If there is a culture which is around, you must get the best, grades, and everyone around you is getting really good grades, then that might add to pressure. If there's a culture which is about you being the best that you can be, and that you're judging yourself against yourself, not against the others around you, then that kind of creates two different contexts. But I think that within that social situation, teachers and parents are also playing important roles in education, because they're under pressure as well. Teachers are under pressure to get results. They get judged on that. Parents want the best for their children ultimately, and they recognise the value of academic results, all the way from primary school upwards. So they could inadvertently put pressure on people as well. So yeah, there's definitely, again, as a neurobiological idea, we're very keen to pay attention to what other people in our environment are saying and doing, and that impacts on us ultimately.
Yeah, and just in case anybody thought that the situation might change in the near future, again, we're not interested so much in this debate about the curriculum being how it's structured and the use of tests and their frequency, but a Department for Education spokesperson did contribute to this article on the BBC website, and they said very clearly that tests are a key part of ensuring young people master the skills they need. So, again, rightly or wrongly, it seems there's no chance of the situation changing, so the analysis you gave is going to be pertinent for a long time, I'm sure. In your experience in the work you've undertaken with Tougher Minds in various schools, both state and independent, what sort of strategies have you put in place in partnership with the staff then to address these situations? Give us an overview of how you've worked and responded to these sort of problems.
Well, I think the important thing here is that if we're at an extreme end, if we're seeing exam pressure contributing to mental health issues, which I'm sure it's not the only cause of those kind of issues, but if it's contributing, I think often we're trying to deal with the situation after the horse has bolted. It's already happened that these young people have already got to the point where they're ill, and they've got physical manifestations of mental health issues. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to equip young people with skills a long way before they have to sit important exams, so that they can deal with exams. And I think that the way to frame exams is that they are challenges, and life is full of challenges. We have challenges to keep ourselves fit and healthy, because it's difficult to get enough sleep, and it's difficult to eat properly, and it's difficult to get enough exercise. We have challenges in keeping ourselves happy, because we're designed to keep beating ourselves up and tell ourselves we can't do it. We have challenges in performing as well as we can, because it's difficult to keep pushing ourselves, because we like to pursue short-term gratification. So we have to recognise that first of all, and we have to teach young people a set of skills that they can use to overcome the challenges. And I think that one of the first kind of probably the obvious first step when thinking about how to manage exams more effectively is that we need to raise ourselves to the challenge, not just in the Easter holidays before our GCSEs, for example. We need to be raising ourselves to the challenge, in year 9 and in year 10, and thinking about, I have this big set of exams coming up, and I need to make them meaningful for me so that I can do some better, some good quality work on those exams, even when I'm in year 10 or year 9. I'm building up to them. I'm not leaving it all to the last minute, because that creates pressure. So, so the things that we get children to do, or young people to do, to make exams more meaningful, is to really get them to think about the big picture of what they want to achieve in their exams, and what achieving those things in the exams means, in the longer term for them in the next 10 years. So trying to get young people to think about and make exams more meaningful to them before it's too late.
Yeah, interesting. I think what you're saying there, John, is as in another way of putting it would be the creation of new habits and a new attitude towards the challenges that the young people are facing. And tell us a little bit more, if you can, about exactly what these sort of habits might be and how you might go about introducing them.
Well, I think that there's a problem in education that, and certainly in secondary school, where you have your year 7 transition and you're in a new school, and it's you're keen to impress most of the time, but then you can have this gap between year 7 and having your GCSE exams in year 11, where there's not necessarily meaningful challenges there for you to address. So you can quickly get in the habit of just drifting in school, just turning up for school, and you go to your form class in the morning, you chat to your friends, and then you go to your lessons, and some lessons you mess about in, some lessons you pay a bit more attention because you like them more. But you build these habits of not really having a lot of purpose to your school life. And then all of a sudden you get into year 11, and then these exams they're coming. And I think people start year 11 and it's year 11 now, and we've got the GCSEs, but that kind of subsides a little bit. So I think what we need to do is get young people in the habit of raising, of developing, of framing meaningful challenges in their school lives. So they get in the habit of learning how to manage challenges and building confidence that they can do that. Because again, exams are just challenges. So I think this is really going back to setting big goals for yourself, so that when you go into school on a Monday, you know what you're working towards, in 3 months' time. Then also, the other kind of more micro habits that we need to develop is, if school isn't very meaningful to you, then you are going to drift in class. You're not going to do your homework properly. So we need to think about the kind of habits that are going to help us to learn and retain information that's going to help us to pass our exams in the long term, so we can keep building up those building blocks of understanding. All really from primary school, you're working towards your GCSEs, and it's just putting the building blocks in place. So I think it's really about two ideas: building habits where you are consistently creating meaningful challenges for yourself, but also building habits which help you to concentrate on the thing that you need to learn in the moment, and doing that to a really high quality. And if you get those two things working together, that's a good way of reducing the stress that exams, might produce. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so. I was going to say, many people might wonder how in what way it does reduce the stress. Why does that new focus, if you like, then help you to manage stress?
Well, I think that the kind of stress that's been described in the article that we led off with is about a big, overwhelming thing that I'm gonna have to come up against, and I'm not sure I have the resources to deal with it to the extent that it's impacting on my mental well-being. So we've got to break that big challenge down into meaningful chunks. So instead of just recognising in the Easter holidays before my GCSE exams that I've got real big thing coming up for me. If I've started to work on that from year 8 and broken down my subjects and the things within my subjects that I need to learn into smaller chunks, and I've been working towards my end of year exams in every year, and I've been testing out my revision strategies, and I've been seeing that I'm getting some success in the way that I'm able to deal with exams, and that's gonna build my confidence, and it's going to help me to manage the stress, if you like. This, what mental health is really, in a nutshell, it's not been able to control what you're paying attention to, and your brain gets fixated on the threat of messing up, the threat of not being good enough, the threat of letting people down. That isn't a good way to it's not a good thing to focus on. So we've got to teach young people how to get their attention onto things that are going to be helpful for them, so that they can build confidence that they can overcome the challenges that, when you're at school, like exams, but when you're in life, can look like lots of different things. So it's really about building the confidence that you can deal with the challenge. And if you've practiced that several times building up to your GCSEs, you're going to be in a better position to sort of back yourself to deal with it.
So I suppose, in other words, then you develop the habit of managing that pressure for yourself by having gone through a similar sort of preparation cycle, if you like, earlier on in your school career, so that when you do come to the actual GCSE period, it's something you're quite accustomed to, and it's you click into gear, for want of a better phrase.
Exactly that, and human beings have a real problem with seeing that we're very fixated in the present moment, because that's what our biology has done for us. We're interested in the here and now, and I think that what we often forget is that when we're looking at a 6-year-old child, we forget that in 10 years they're going to be doing their GCSEs. And in fact, in 12 years, they're going to be part of the workforce of the country. And what we can start to teach young people is a set of skills that they can use to overcome challenges. We don't teach them these skills currently, Andrew. It's not explicitly taught. Like we teach children how to read and how to write and how to do maths, but we don't explicitly teach them how to manage themselves. We don't teach them how to build their confidence, how to manage their concentration so that they can learn properly, how to build up their motivation when it's down. And what we're trying to do with the Tougher Minds programme is teach young people a set of transferable life skills that, when they're in education, they use to overcome academic challenges, such as exams. When they're in education, they use these skills to overcome other challenges in their life, both in their social life or their extracurricular life. But they've got a set of skills which they can use to overcome any challenge in their life. And, overcoming challenges, you're going to be more successful at doing that if you've got some confidence that you can do it. Because if you don't have any confidence and you do it, all that you can overcome a challenge, all you end up doing is worrying about that you're going to fail the challenge. It's not going to work. You can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do this. So it's really about building confidence, and you can explicitly teach people to do that.
What one significant factor that perhaps people might not expect in this picture that we're describing is that, certainly in the Tougher Minds programme, there is a role to play for the parents and the family, and indeed you've taught groups of parents at schools explicitly how to play their role productively in the process you've just outlined. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, about how exactly the home environment can support that objective?
Yeah, well, I think we have to recognise that children spend a lot of time with their parents. It sounds very, very obvious, but I think we often underestimate how important parental home input is in children succeeding at school. So we always have, in our programs, we always have a strong focus on helping parents to understand how they can help their children. And actually, how they can help themselves as well. And what we're trying to do is help parents to learn skills that they can talk about to their children with, but they can also use for themselves to overcome challenges. So that if we want children to be able to overcome a revision problem in a subject that they don't like, then we can help parents to understand how they can help their child to do that. And again, it often comes back to building confidence and making sure that you've got your learning strategies kind of aligned. So I think what we want we want to surround young people with the same coherent strategies that will help them to overcome challenges in their life. But we want those strategies that are coming from the school to be reinforced at home as well. And if the strategies that the school are informing are also the same as the strategies the parents are informing, that becomes very powerful. So, for example, if we have a shared way of understanding what confidence is and a shared way of understanding how we can build confidence, then not only can it be reinforced at school when I'm struggling with my English and I need to build my confidence in English, mum and dad can also reinforce it at home as well. But also, if mum and dad understand these skills and they use it in their own life, it becomes much more compelling for the child to hear that dad's using this at work and he's used it to overcome the challenge. He went out when he got asked to do a marathon for charity at work and he didn't think he could do it, but he used this same understanding to build his confidence up. And then families can have that conversation and they can have these sort of life skills that they're continually communicating with each other in relation to the challenges that everyone's trying to overcome in their lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's very clear. I think it's clear that the consistency of environment, if you like, is what you're outlining, and I think many people will be interested in that. And just for people who are perhaps not familiar with the work of Tougher Minds in the last 4 or 5 years, worth perhaps maybe one or two anecdotes briefly about some of the successes you've had with schools and including the parent training, as you call it.
Yes, I think that we've seen some very powerful work done with parents in the home place. What's very clear, Andrew, is that what's becoming very clear with increasing data is actually stress is much more likely to occur if your hippocampi are not producing new brain cells.
So that's an area of the brain, goodness me.
An area of the brain that produces new brain cells, because when you produce new brain cells, it allows you to think about problems much more flexibly.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you can kind of get stuck in a rut. Now, the maintenance of the hippocampi, it centres around sleep, diet and exercise.
Your lifestyle, in other words.
Yes, and a lot of that is driven from the home. And we know that smartphones are about 10 years old now. Tablets are even less than that. We have technology beyond what we used to have. Now, if I'm trying to manage my stress, I need to get a good night's sleep. The data is very, very compelling that if you look into a light source, like a smartphone, like a tablet, like a laptop, up to an hour, for a sustained period of time, up to an hour before you try to go to sleep, it inhibits your brain's ability to produce melatonin. Melatonin is a neurotransmitter that helps you go to sleep. So if a child is on their smartphone in bed or their tablet, they're not going to get a good night's sleep that night. They're not going to be able to go into school the next day and function properly. So by parents understanding this, they can put simple and practical interventions in place at home. So in fact, our head of education, Andrew Foster, who's working at one of our state school programs today, actually, and they'll be doing some parent training quite soon. he's got a good example of where a family bought a fruit bowl, but no fruit ever got put in the fruit bowl. It was a place that everyone put their mobile phones in the evening. So that, if we want children to change their behaviour, parents have to model that as well. So, parents buying into this idea and into the same methodologies that they want their children to perform. So, without a doubt, the parent interventions we've seen via Tougher Minds are very, very powerful. But I think the power is extended, not just in the family home, but the parents use these strategies themselves at work and in their broader life. And that makes it much more powerful. If children can see mum and dad are doing this as well. So but I think we're starting to unravel some ideas, aren't we? That stress, people getting stressed, they're getting stressed. Okay, well, what are we doing about the stress? Are we getting the sleep right? Are we getting our exercise right? Are we getting our diet right? Okay, are we making the challenges that we're going to face in school meaningful from an early enough time in our school careers so that we can manage and overcome the challenge? Are we developing skills that help us to maximise every bout of practice that I do in a lesson? When I say practice, I mean in a lesson I'm practicing English, I'm practicing maths, I'm practicing biology. Am I developing skills and strategies that when I go home to do my homework, I'm being really efficient and effective in how I'm doing that? So we can get overwhelmed by the idea of stress, but we need to step back and put some logic on it. We've got some very compelling data that's coming from all different sources of research, but it's very clear we've got to. It's very clear we can manage stress. We can do better, but I think we're letting our young people down because we're not teaching them about this explicitly. And we should be, and that's what. But fortunately, in the Tougher Minds program, we actually do that. But broadly, we're not teaching young people about this. So I would frame, forget whether exams are stressful or not. I don't think that's the point. I think the point is that young people are gonna keep facing challenges in their life because that's what life is. To be healthy, happy, and high performing, you've got to overcome challenges. Exams are just a challenge. So instead of getting too concerned about the pressure that exams bring, I think we should pay more attention to teaching young people simple and practical skills that they can use to overcome these challenges. This is people in our schools are the workforce for the future. And it's quite clear industry doesn't think that what the education system is producing both at school and university is optimising the development of those young people, as well as it can. Of course, the schools and education and university do some great things, but we can do better. And I think this is an area which we're not exploiting enough. Teaching these simple and practical life skills.
That was Dr. John Finn concluding the first in what's going to become a series of regular Tougher Minds podcasts. We hope you enjoyed listening and look out for more coming in the near future. Don't forget, if you're in London this week, we have the Tougher Minds Improve Exam Success event at the UCL Institute of Education on Thursday, the 21st of April. There are still some tickets available, and there are 2 sessions. The same content will be shown in each session at 6:15 and 8 o'clock. If you want more details of that, go to the Tougher Minds website, tougherminds.co.uk. Once again, thanks for listening. Another Tougher Minds podcast is on the way next week.
Thanks for listening to the Habit Mechanic podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe and tell someone else about one of the ideas or insights that you found most interesting.